any area where there is some form of disaster or crisis, and is it possible that you saw a vehicle painted white, most likely, with a red cross on it, or individuals with some form of identification that would show them as Red Cross, and you may not know perhaps what this stands for? We'll find out all of that as we get into this special interview, and we have the communication coordinator of the International Committee of the Red Cross in Nigeria, Robin Waudo, here with us. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Now, from our chat, I discovered that you've been in Nigeria for about 2 years.
Yes, I arrived in Nigeria in August of 2020 when COVID was still quite a big problem. Yes. So you can imagine it took me 3 days to get here just from across the other side of the continent. Yes, but I've been here working with our team in the country and traveled to different places to represent the ICRC and explain what we are doing in the country in order for people to be aware about our work.
Okay, within this period, you must have toured, just like you said, various parts of the country, the north, the south, the east, and the west, perhaps?
Yes, I've had the privilege of going to Maiduguri and Jos, Kano, Port Harcourt, Enugu, different places, all for this purpose I just mentioned.
Okay, and you had seen and interacted with the people?
Yes, I have interacted with a lot of people, especially when we do this, we meet with journalists. But I interact with people all the time in my job, and we are based in Abuja where the ICRC delegation is. We have a huge team there, as well as in the field. In our smaller offices, we have smaller teams, but in Maiduguri in the northeast, we have a very large team.
Okay. Before we get into the crux of this conversation, tell me the Nigerian delicacies you've tried and how you find them.
I've tried egusi, suya, chicken suya especially, very nice, but I haven't tried many of the foods because I find they're very peppery and hot.
Okay, you like the egusi?
Yes.
What did you take it with?
I had it with pounded yam.
And it was nice.
Very good, I felt.
Did you try our jollof rice?
Of course, jollof rice, I tried it very good. At least it was not too hot, so I could have that.
Okay, all right, good. So what's your mission? You're based in Abuja, so what's your mission to Lagos?
We've come on a visit to Lagos to meet journalists, and there were two objectives. One of them was to introduce the International Committee of the Red Cross, and of course the Nigerian Red Cross with whom we have come together here, we are partnering with. So we have a team from the headquarters of the Nigerian Red Cross in Abuja, as well as colleagues coming from the office of the ICRC in Abuja. And to meet the journalists was first to have a session briefing about what the ICRC is doing in Nigeria, to have also a forum where they could ask questions and be able to interact with us. But most chiefly, we came to do first aid training. So the training has been going on now since Tuesday. So it's a 2.5-day training, basically on first aid being delivered by the Nigerian Red Cross colleagues with whom we came.
Okay, we'll talk about the training and the rest. But first, educate us. What's the difference between the Nigerian Red Cross and the International Committee of the Red Cross? Because while growing up, while in primary school and secondary school, I was a member of the Nigerian Red Cross. And much later, I hear very little about the Nigerian Red Cross, and I hear more about the International Committee of the Red Cross. Is it that the Nigerian Red Cross Society had been consumed, for want of a better word, by the ICRC, or that they exist, on their own independent platforms, but perhaps meeting somewhere for the same purpose?
Oh, yeah, I think Nigerian Red Cross, just to reassure you, has not been consumed by the ICRC. We are very much working in partnership in different places in the country, and the Nigerian Red Cross is definitely much, much bigger than the ICRC. They are operating in 36 states all over the country, while we are operating in specific areas. And to that, what the ICRC's mission is to assist and protect people who are affected by armed conflict and situations of violence. And that is why we are present in Nigeria, especially in the northeast, where there is armed conflict going on between some groups and the government. But in other areas, like in the North Center, where you have some communal violence, these are the people we try to assist. But we don't do this alone. because we are partnering with the Nigerian Red Cross Society. We partner with national societies like Nigerian Red Cross all over the world. And there are 192 national societies in different countries all over the world. They are our partners in the movement because they work in the country level, while we are called international, meaning we work in different states on armed conflict. So we are partners in the movement. What the movement is the ICRC, national societies like the Nigerian Red Cross, but also the International Federation, which is also an organization that is an umbrella body for national societies around the world.
Okay, you talked about the training going on for journalists in Lagos on first aid and emergency attention and all of that. One begins to wonder what's the connection between first aid and emergency and journalists, because a lot of people will believe that those kind of training is better for soldiers, military men, police, fire service, those people that are out there to respond quickly to emergency situation. How are you tying your mission with the duty or the job of journalists?
We are working closely with journalists, not just to have them create awareness about what we do, but we also find it's essential for them to have this first aid skill. It's because they're working on the front lines. When they go to collect a story from where there's a situation of violence, they might need to assist somebody who has been affected by the violence there, or even to help people in everyday life, not even just violence, a road accident. The journalist might be the first person on the scene and take the story, but also see people who need help and be able to help them. And this 1 hour that is happening when somebody is injured is called the golden hour, and the help that can be provided just by first aid can save somebody's life and their limbs. That is why we are doing it.
But if I understand you very well, then other professionals may also need to acquire that first aid skill. For instance, in the bank, there might be a situation that will warrant or will require emergency attention, and the people there are, they're professionals in the banking industry, and they do not have the skill. So you may consider, are you considering extending such a privilege of acquiring the skill to other sections and stratas of the society?
Yes, surely you're right that people who are working in the bank or even a mother in the household may need to have these basic first aid skills. And that is where the Nigerian Red Cross comes in. It does this kind of training for any kind of institution that might want to get this kind of training at a commercial rate that can be negotiated between the Nigerian Red Cross and the bank that you've mentioned or another organization. Yes, this first aid training can be organized.
Okay, you've toured Nigeria, and you were very specific in talking about Maiduguri, which is one of the places where armed conflict had sustained for a long time. And sometimes the story that come out from there, most times rather, you wouldn't hear about the Red Cross or International Red Cross Society, International Committee of the Red Cross doing anything until a social worker is caught in the middle of the conflict. That suggests that your people are also always exposed to all of this. How is your committee of the Red Cross making effort to protect your people who are working in the front line?
Thank you. That is a good question. I think, first of all, it needs to be clear what our mission is wherever we are working. And you have specifically talked about Maiduguri. This, because of the armed conflict, you've got people who are displaced in the thousands, not even thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are displaced, and they need to be assisted when they go to the host communities. They need food, water, shelter, very basic things that we take for granted. Our mission is to assist them and protect them first and foremost. But we need to be able to ensure that our own people who are doing that job have the protection in order to be able to deliver the assistance themselves. And not only our people. As I mentioned, we are working in partnership with the Nigerian Red Cross. We need to ensure that any team that is going to assist needs to be protected. Now, your question was, how do we ensure that we are protected? we talk to parties to the conflict, all sides, if I may say, be it the government or other actors. As long as we can have this contact and be able to explain to them what we are doing and that our mission is humanitarian, then they need to assure us that our people will be safe. So we try to make contact as much as possible. In some situations, it's not that easy, but we need to find ways to inform so that when armed groups or the authority, the military, they see our vehicles, they see our people, they have already been notified about what we are doing. And that kind of acceptance is the one that makes it possible for us to work safely and securely in these places that are not easy to move about.
And on those occasions when the unexpected happens, when someone is taken hostage and you are required to intervene to secure the freedom of your people or aid workers generally, how do you go about it? What's the challenges? What's the most difficult challenge you face in dealing with this?
This is, of course, as you mentioned, very difficult situation, and we have been faced with it in Democratic Republic of Congo just some weeks or months ago. The first thing we try to do is to activate our contacts and begin talking to everybody in order to understand who has taken them and why. And then we need to be able to explain to whoever has done this that we are a humanitarian organization. We are here to assist people and to protect them. We are not related to the government or another group or the military, that we are a neutral organization. Now, in some cases it works. And in the case of DRC, I mentioned our people were released, and this we were very grateful to see. And in other years, we have done this before. So what I'm saying is that we do not negotiate the release. We actually explain ourselves so that we can be understood, and then our people can be released. A negotiation means give and take. We don't give anything to get our people.
Because I wanted to ask how much you have been paying in ransom.
Unfortunately, we don't pay ransoms. You can imagine if we had somebody taken today and we paid ransom, we would all be vulnerable to being taken, because there were groups of people who would understand that if we take so and so, we will get money. So we do not do this for that very purpose. We don't do it in Nigeria. We haven't done it in Syria. We haven't done it in Sudan. We haven't done it wherever our people are working. But the unfortunate circumstance is that we've had people taken, and as I'm speaking right now, we have 4 colleagues who've been taken, 3 in Syria, 1 in Somalia, and we don't know their whereabouts until today. One has been gone for 6 years, the other one for 3 years. So we still try to reach these groups to find out what happened to our people. But not only being taken, but we've even had colleagues killed in this country, in the Northeast. I think it was 2018. 2 nurses who were working with ICRC were taken and killed by an armed group. After we had explained over and over and tried to make the contacts, we were not very successful, unfortunately. But we do make sure that we try to get our people back, because it's really important. And that first of all, we are understood that we are a humanitarian organization. That's our exclusive mission. We don't work for any of the countries out there or any of the parties. Our interest is to assist and protect people who are vulnerable because of conflict and violence.
And when the news of the 2 nurses killed now brought back that thought of that incident when it happened, but how much of a discouragement does it bring to your circle, to your team, or does it form, some form of energy that this is a task that must be carried out, among the people? Because when something like that happens, you could find a situation where people will not be ready to get out there again and put their lives on the line. On the other hand, it could become a source of inspiration for some of them to say, okay, if someone had paid the price, we will see it to the end. How does it happen in your circle?
It has definitely got repercussions psychologically, mentally, but also operationally. Because the first thing, if we have such an incident, some colleagues are killed or kidnapped, we definitely cannot operate in that area like it's business as usual. So the people whom we were trying to assist there, we'll definitely not be able to get the assistance that we were supposed to deliver because it has become very unsafe for us to work. So operationally, we have to scale down the operation from the area that is affected. And in some cases, we even shut down operations all over the country because we have people moving in various places, and we do not want this to happen again. Until we begin to understand again what the situation is, what has happened, then we need to balance this against the humanitarian needs. The people who are affected, they still need us. Can we go back out there? And only until we are satisfied that we might be able to continue working do we do it. And I can name two circumstances of this that happened. One happened in Afghanistan where we lost 6 people killed by an armed group. We were not operating for more than a year. We had to stay in the offices and could not go anywhere. When it happened here in Nigeria that 2 people were killed, I was not here, but I understand for a long time we could not go out and help people. Now we have to try and do something else. We have to get people to come to us if they need the assistance. But as you can imagine, some of them are so far away, so difficult for them to come because of the security situation and measures like this. So at the end of the day, we have a humanitarian mission and we need to accomplish it. And I'm not being idealistic. I'm talking about what I have seen. We need to do it, but it has to be measured against our security and safety of our teams. That's really important for us.
Okay, with the volume of work you do in the most remote part of the world, even in our country, Nigeria, one will be wondering how you sustain the team. You left your country, Kenya, to be here in Nigeria, and the size of the team in Nigeria is also massive in Abuja. And in fact, I've been to Borno State. I was in Borno State Plateau State, sorry. I was in Plateau State some months ago in January, and I came in contact with your team in the field where they were actually working. How do you sustain this team? Where does the funding come from?
The funding of the ICRC comes from countries around the world, countries that have basically signed the Geneva Conventions. And the Geneva Conventions is this international humanitarian law treaty that has been signed by all countries in the world. It's the only treaty that has been signed by all countries. So these countries, they commit to fund the ICRC's operations. And how we do it, each year, we begin planning from around June, July, August, and in September, we usually have a plan for the next year. And we send this plan to all the countries of the world, telling them that we will be working in Nigeria, in Maiduguri, in Jos, and then we ask for the funding, telling them, Nigeria, we need 79 million Swiss francs. And then countries will give funding. And of course, not all the countries will provide funding as much as some of them. You've got countries like the US, European Union countries, Scandinavian countries, Red Cross national societies like the British, the Norwegians, the Finnish Red Cross. They fund the ICRC. And this is an ongoing effort. The relationship begins from January 1 to December 31st. We are doing fundraising throughout the year based on our plans for the operations. And so far it seems to be going well. We are able to fund operations. And then you have the case where there is a humanitarian catastrophe like what we are seeing in Ukraine. Then we have to ask for funding now. We need funds right now. We go back to these countries and tell them people in Ukraine need water, they need food, they need blankets, then we bring this back to the countries that do the funding, and then they provide the funding again. It's a complex effort, not very simple, but we have an office in Geneva that works. Geneva is our headquarters for the ICRC. They work purely on this and nothing else in one of the departments.
Okay, do you have situations where you require collaboration? You officially want to require the collaboration or support of the military? I'm using Nigeria now as a case study. You require the collaboration and support of the military, and how do you go about getting it? If you have such needs, how do you go about getting it, and how smooth had that collaboration been in Nigeria between the ICRC and the military?
We have had a relationship with the Nigerian government for many, many years, since the civil war from 69, I believe, until 71 or some. 67 to 71, sorry, yeah, my years are a bit off. We've been talking to the authorities here for a long time. We only established offices here in 1988, and we have an agreement that spells out all the things we can do and work together. And an extension of this is working with the military armed forces, because the ICRC promotes international humanitarian law, which is the law of armed conflict, the law of war. This law does two things. It moderates the kind of weapons and the kind of tactics that can be used. Like a tactic of attacking a village, raping all the women and burning it down, that is prohibited by the Geneva Conventions, this international treaty signed by all countries. Tactic like bombing the whole town from the sky, this is a method that is also banned. Now, why we have the conversation with the military is because we want to raise awareness and respect for these laws that protect civilians. They protect the wounded and sick. They protect the detainees, those who have been captured. These laws are what we promote. And we are talking with the military at all levels. Just earlier this year, our head of delegation in Abuja met with the Chief of Army Staff to discuss these issues, and also with the staff were in this meeting. We also meet the military at the different places where they have operations. We talk to them. And since it's easier to meet the military and talk to them and have this relationship that is very good, we can do this easily. But talking to the other side is more complicated because it's difficult to access them. Now we try to use relays, people who have discussion with them, those who can get information to them, to create this awareness. We also use public media and this kind of information sources. So yes, we do have a dialogue with the military. We are not soliciting their support. We are asking them to respect international humanitarian law, to protect civilians, wounded, sick, detained people. That is what we are asking them to do.
And what's your assessment of that demand you make of them? Have they honored it? Have they played according to the rules? You know, what's the percentage of that, their commitment to it?
That would be a very difficult question for me to answer, because we all know that there is very many different reports about what is going on. So we have that conversation with the military and the Ministry of Defense on how they are playing by the rules. We cannot have it publicly because it's a confidential and bilateral dialogue we have with them. Having it publicly would sour the relationship we already have with them. Then they would be inaccessible, meaning that they would not be able to hear this from others.
Okay, so your stay in Lagos, your mission here, the training, what are you expecting? What are you expecting to come out of that training at the end of the day, and how will you be able to measure the success?
Good question. First and foremost, we were expecting to meet journalists, and we've met 15 of them. We have briefed them. We have had a first aid training with them.
You just met the 16th one.
Oh, okay, very good. Excellent. So we have already got that outcome of having shared a forum of conversation with them, and they already have the skills. Now, to measure the output is something that we have to monitor over time. So what we will do is to get their contacts, and we usually form a WhatsApp group where we can exchange information, and to see, hopefully somebody will come out situation where there is need to use the first aid skills, and they'll let us know what they did. Then we'll be able to measure. But we can't measure the impact of that now.
Okay.
But we can already measure that they have the knowledge and that we have had the opportunity to talk to them.
All right.
Yes.
Robin Waudo, the Communication Coordinator, International Committee for the Red Cross in Nigeria. Thank you so much for sparing your time with us on this interview.
Thank you very much for having us.
And to you that watched, it's our pleasure that you did. Let's do it again. Thanks.